everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of June, and this has been, I think, the weakest reading month of the last few years, at least since I've been properly back into reading. I was overseas pretty much for the entire month of June, so I only ended up reading 4 books across the whole month, which is pretty crazy for me, but that's okay. It's kind of to be expected, and I had such an amazing time overseas. I only really had like a few beach days here and there where I did most of the reading, and then a little bit obviously on my plane trip home last week. But weirdly, the 4 books are kind of separated into 2 categories. I read 2 romances that are very like light, summery, fluffy kind of romances, and 2 kind of literary fiction-y thrillers. I'm not sure why that happened, that the 4 ended up being so similar, but I had a good time with every book that I read this month. So let's get into them. The first book that I read at the start of the month was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and I actually don't have any physical books to hold for this entire video because I obviously read everything on my Kindle while I was away. So Piranesi was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved this one. I kind of want to be careful about how I talk about this and what I give away, because I went into this with pretty much zero clue of what the plot was. And I kind of think that's the best way to do it, because you get the best experience out of solving the mystery with Piranesi. So in Piranesi, we follow Piranesi, who is a man who lives in a house which is kind of magically endless, and he doesn't know why he's there, but he knows that his job is to be an explorer of this house. So he spends his days wandering the halls, these endless halls that just keep going forever. He's never been able to reach an end to them. And over the years of him living there, he's kind of become an expert on the halls and of the animals that come through the house and the tides. So in this magical house, there's these tides. There's a kind of water that flows through the bottom halls of the house, and he knows to keep track of when the tides are going to get really high so that it's going to be dangerous for him. And yeah, I don't really want to say any more than that, except that we follow Piranesi as he's finally figuring out why he is in this house all alone. And we're in first person point of view because we're reading from journal entries as Piranesi documents his days. And I just loved everything about this. It felt very wholesome at the start because Piranesi it's strange, he has this very like childlike innocence to him, and he's just a wholesome and really sweet character to be in the perspective of, but he's also very, very intelligent, and you can tell by the way he writes and the way that he thinks about things that he is an educated person. It's a very interesting perspective to be in, and I loved trying to figure out the mystery of the house and why he's there alongside him. It was just very intriguing, and it does get creepy towards the end, which I didn't expect. I wasn't sure what the vibes of this were gonna be, if it was just gonna be like a literary fiction or what, but it definitely has like thriller vibes throughout. You know, in a kind of way, it never gets like too scary, but it's very fun. And I loved how the mystery was woven through, and you slowly get little clues throughout that lead up to what you find out at the end. And I feel like this would be an interesting one to reread, just to see if you can spot any like hints that you get at the start. But yeah, they were just weaved in so cleverly. I really liked that. And something that I didn't expect was there were some interesting critiques on abuse and themes of cults in academia, which was really interesting. But yeah, I don't want to say too much about that without giving anything away. I kind of think that's all I want to say. It was just a very fun read, and I definitely recommend. But I can also see why this book wouldn't be for everyone. I do feel like at times it feels like there's no plot. I never felt bored at all just because I was loving his perspective and him as a person. And so I enjoyed every minute of his writing. But there isn't much of a plot. A lot of the time we are just kind of there with Piranesi. So if you're somebody who needs a lot of action or romance in your plot, I'd say this one isn't for you, but I loved it. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars to Piranesi. And then after finishing Piranesi, I wanted something a bit lighter and also just a fun beachy read, because I knew that I was towards the end of the trip. I was in a lot more like beachy locations, so I wanted more of a beach read. So I decided to pick up Just Friends by Hayley Pham. And as you can see from the cover, it's definitely a beachy read. Like it was a fun, easy to read kind of a romance, and it was set at this like small coastal town. It was perfect actually in terms of the atmosphere. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite romance, but I had been excited to give it a try because I have been following Hayley Pham on YouTube for quite a long time. I really enjoy her as a person, and I was just curious to see what her first book would be like. And I was pretty impressed by it for the fact that it was her first novel. As I said, it was very fun, very atmospheric, like the vibes of the town and just the beach and all of that were just perfect and exactly what I needed. The writing was definitely, like, it had its faults, and I did find myself getting a little bit frustrated with the writing style in it at times and some of the quotes. It just, sometimes it just didn't feel realistic, and I didn't feel like the conversations that people were having felt like real conversations. But it was easy to ignore that, like it was just a light read. So basically the plot of this one, we follow Blair, who has been living away from her small town. She's living in a city and going to college, and right as she's finishing up her final semester of college, she gets a call from her mum who lets her know that her aunt, who she basically helped raise her, like she grew up living with her auntie and her mum in her auntie's house in this small town. She is basically terminally ill with cancer, so she essentially cancels all of her summer plans and heads back home to this little small town. I think this town's called Seabrook, just to basically spend the summer with her aunt before she passes away. So that part of it is really, really sad, and there is a lot of talks in this book about grief and overcoming grief, and also what your relationships with your friends, with your partner, people that you're dating, how they can look when you're going through grief, which I didn't really expect. It got deep at times, which I did like. But yeah, when she gets back to this small town, we pretty quickly realize that she has been dreading coming back to this town because of her pretty abrupt breakup with her ex-boyfriend 4 years ago, Declan. And so then we kind of go between present time and in the past, when she has been growing up with Declan, who was her childhood best friend turned boyfriend when they kind of were in the senior year of high school. I think they finally got together, and those past chapters were so cute. I really enjoyed them. I really liked Declan in the past chapters, and yeah, just seeing them go from friends to lovers was very sweet. It was definitely a little bit Wattpaddy and some cringy lines in those chapters, but I kind of didn't care that much because it was just really fun and sweet. But then in the now chapters, she is trying to spend as much time with her aunt, but she's also really trying to save money because her plans for after this summer are that she's going to move to New York, and she's got an internship at this big like consulting firm. And her life goals are basically to earn as much money as she can to support her mum, because her mum has worked in her auntie's supermarket for as long as she can remember, and she just wants her mum to have freedom in life, to be able to not work at a supermarket and start dating and just live her life however she wants to and feel a little bit freer. So she definitely doesn't feel passionate about this consulting internship thing that she has in New York, but she's really set on her goal to earn as much money as possible to support her mum. So to do that, she needs to be earning money this summer so that she can afford her apartment in New York. So she gets a job at this local coffee shop, and when she starts, she finds out that the manager is Declan, of course. And so they have like this close proximity thing where they're kind of getting to know each other again all these years later as adults. And there's also kind of this side plot about Declan. When they were in high school, he was a star footy player, and his goal was to become a professional football player. But right before they broke up, he got into an accident and he got injured, and that basically derailed his life plans. And so now, all these years later, she's kind of seeing where he has ended up. And yeah, there were some very interesting discussions about, as I said, grief. Also grief in adjusting to life, a different life than what you expected. And I feel like they were able to bond a lot in the present chapters about the grief that they've experienced in different ways. But yeah, that was really nice. Some of the negatives, I definitely got very frustrated with the third act conflict. It just felt so unbelievable. Actually, this wasn't the third act conflict, but when we finally find out why they broke up 4 years ago, it was just, I was like, are you kidding? It was just something, there was this whole build up, and then it was something that could have just been so easily solved if there was a little bit of communication. And just with the romance in general, I liked both of the characters, but there was just something about them together that I never really connected with. I didn't care about the romance that much. I definitely preferred the past chapters, but they finished pretty early on in the book. And then, I never really connected with them as a couple. I think it's just that the conversations between characters never felt that believable. And I think that was just the writing style. It felt a little bit fan fiction-y. And I don't know, I'm not entirely sure why, but I just never really connected with it. But I still had a good time, and I loved the ending. It was so sweet, and it just had a very happy, wholesome feeling, which was nice. And I definitely do feel like by the end, Declan, you could tell he just loved Blair so fully, which was very cute and very sweet. And I just feel like Blair just living the dream life. I would love to have her life by the end of the book. So yeah, it was just a fun beach read, and I rated it 3.5 stars. And then after that, I decided to start Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. And this is the second of the two thrillery books. This one is definitely more of a horror. I would say the vibe of it at the start feels a little bit lit fic, and then it kind of slowly turns into a horror. And this was definitely a weird one. It was also a very strange book. It was also a very strange decision for me to start this while I was on different planes. I remember reading this while I was on a few of the different flights, not the big ones, but just the smaller little flights. And this is about a sunken submarine. So one of the main characters in this gets trapped under the sea on a submarine, which is just horrible, one of my worst nightmares. And it's a little bit close for comfort being trapped on a plane, being trapped on a submarine, but it was fine. I got through it. So the plot of this one is interesting. So we have two point of views. We have forget their names. Okay, I had to look it up. So we have Miri and Leah, and they're in a couple, so they are together, they live together. And Miri is some kind of marine biologist. No, sorry, Leah is some kind of marine biologist. She's had an obsession with sea creatures her entire life and just the ocean in general. And her current job is observing the things that happen in the ocean when they go down in a submarine. And she goes out for a trip, which is supposed to be like 2 weeks under the sea in this submarine, and something goes wrong and they end up being under there for 6 months, which is horrific. And then we also follow Miri, who is Leah's girlfriend back at home, and her point of view follows kind of the time that Leah was away and how she and what she went through, the grief that this one also covers a lot of like themes around grief as well, but yeah, the grief that she felt and how like her experiences while Leah was away and her just not knowing when she would come back. But then we also get like the current chapters where Leah's now back and adjusting to life, but she's not the same, and Miri is trying to figure out how to live this life with this different person who isn't really her girlfriend anymore. And it's a lot. I don't know what I was expecting with this one, but yeah, it's another one that I don't want to say too much because yeah, you just gotta get into it and find out what happens. But all I can really say is that I was hooked the entire time. It was like, it was kind of like watching a car crash. Like I was just kind of like, oh my God, what is gonna happen? What is going on? Like there was a little bit of like body horror, I would say, and that was a little bit strange. And the ending was interesting, but I had a very good time, and it makes me intrigued to read some more like weird books. I don't know if there's like a genre of, because I didn't mind like the horror part of it, but I just like with this and Piranesi, the weirdness and like the mystery kind of behind them and figuring that out. So I definitely want to get into a little bit more of those kind of reads. It was very interesting. But yeah, as I said, it had some interesting discussions around grief and the complexities of grief. Like in this one, she's grappling with grieving someone who is still there, but they're not the same person anymore, so it is still a kind of grief. And there's also a part of it where when she doesn't know if Leah is coming back, and she finds like a forum on the internet for people whose loved ones have disappeared, and the discussions that they have in this forum were very interesting. Like these people don't know how to grieve because they don't know if they should still have hope that the person they love is going to come back and return to them, or if they can actually fully grieve. It's like different to losing a loved one to death. So yeah, I found those interesting, apart from like the very strange parts to it. And the only reason I rated it 4 stars is at times it did feel a little bit draggy. I just felt like in both perspectives, there were these long internal monologues about like the things and people around them or the things in their past. And sometimes the things that they were going on about didn't even have any context to the story. They didn't end up needing to be said, I don't think. Like it just kind of felt long and a little bit boring in those parts. I think a good example of this is when we're in Leah's point of view and she's just sunken to the bottom of the ocean. So this is like this horrific part where like they don't know what to do, the power's gone off, they don't know how to contact anybody, and she just goes on this like page-long monologue about Catholic saints. And I was like, why? I want to get back to the plot, like what's happening? And that might have had some symbolism to it that I just didn't understand. I'm not sure. But yeah, overall, it was a very fun time. And I think these 2 books have kind of opened up a new genre of books for me, I guess. Like, I want to find some more that feel like this, but maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure about the horror. If anyone has any recommendations of weird mystery kind of thrillery books, let me know. So that was Our Lives Under the Sea, and I rated that 4 stars. So the last book that I started right at the end of the trip, I actually started this on my last day in Lisbon, which is our last spot, was Going Greek by Sue Roberts. And this was an audiobook. And I started this because I actually got food poisoning on the night before the last day of my trip. And so the last day, I kind of tried to push through the food poisoning in the morning, and I went out and tried walking around, and then I ended up just getting so sick. So it was so disappointing because I really wanted to do a bit more. I had a little bit more to explore in Lisbon, but it's fine, I'll just have to go back. But yeah, I ended up having to go back to the room and basically spent that entire afternoon in bed. And it got to the point where like that food poisoning was so bad that I could hardly move except to get up to vomit. And I emptied, so gross, TMI, but I like emptied everything out of me. Like it was horrible, but I couldn't get myself to physically read, and I was also really awake, so I couldn't sleep for the whole time. So that was horrible, but what I decided to do was start an audiobook, and I had Going Greek saved on my Libby, and because it's like a 6-hour audiobook, it's a pretty short one, and I think I just wanted something a bit light and atmospheric that was going to take me away from the situation that I was in. So I thought that would be a good one. So I just started it and I listened to most of it that afternoon. I finished it on the flight home and I really enjoyed it. It was a very like fun rom-com-y vibe set in Greece. I think it was the perfect one to start, to be honest. It was just entertaining, very cute, very fun. I love the setting of the Greek town. The narrator was perfect as well. She was like very British, and I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed this one as much if I was reading it, but she just did it so well. Like I could tell the writing wasn't amazing, and I think if I was reading it, it wouldn't have come across as great, but the way that she portrayed it was very fun. So in this one, we follow Sam, who is a morning show presenter, and she loves her job, she loves her life. She's had this passion for being like a TV presenter since she was a little girl, and she's living out her dream now. She earns a lot of money, she's got this amazing house, and the only thing that she doesn't have in her life is a partner. And like her best friends are starting to get married, have babies and things like that, and she is just a little bit lonely. She goes out one night, like right before her summer vacation from the morning show, and she ends up like having a one night stand with this guy who she thinks like is a really cool guy. He's like a surgeon and he's really handsome. And then the next morning they're photographed together coming out of his hotel room, and it turns out that he has a wife. And so there's this whole big scandal that happens. Everyone is really against her, like the public are really against her, because she's supposed to be this very like this morning show, like she's basically supposed to have an image that has been ruined by this scandal, which is so gross. Obviously she didn't know, and he's the problem in the situation. So yeah, but the public turns on her. She is not sure if this is going to ruin her career or not, and it's kind of good timing because she's just gone on summer break anyway, so she's got a couple of months, I think, off from the show. So she starts like hibernating in her house, and she feels like she can't go outside because there's always like camera people around trying to get videos of her and things like that, and she's just miserable. And then she gets a call from her sister who lives in Greece, and she basically moved with her family a few years ago and bought a farm in this like small Greek town. And I think the area that she lives in is Rhodes. I've never been to Greece, so I'm not sure. But so her sister invites her to come and stay for the summer. I think she already had plans to come later in the summer holidays for like a couple of weeks. But when her sister finds out about what she's going through, she's like, just come escape from your reality for a while, spend time with me and the family, and we would love to have you here. It's all very sweet. So she decides to pack up early and go to Greece, and she's there for like 6 weeks or something like that. And I love the family. She has 2 little daughters, and her husband is just so sweet. I loved their family unit and the way that they are with Sam as well, all as a family. It was just very, very sweet. And we soon get to know all of the other people that live in this small town, and the atmosphere of the Greek restaurants and like the streets that she walks down, and when they go to the beach, it's all just like so fun. And yeah, obviously there's a romance. When she's there, she ends up running into her college boyfriend, who he was kind of a dick. They were in a long-term relationship in college, and he broke up with her to go traveling, and they never really saw each other again until now. And there's also this Greek guy who is a local that lives on a farm right near her sister's farm, and I think they run like a cheese farm or something like that, and so he always comes over to collect. What does he collects something from her sister's family's farm. What am I saying? Because they're both farms, they like work together a little bit. He collects things that he needs for his farm, and yeah. And so she's kind of getting to know this guy while at the same time going on dates with her old boyfriend that seems like he's changed and really wants to spend time with her again. Both of them live in Greece, so her ex-boyfriend also now lives in Greece. So the whole time she's like, either way, I can't be with either of these people long term because I'm gonna be moving back to my life in London. And yeah, it was just very fun. And that whole situation about the public turning on her was very frustrating, but I kind of like how that gets resolved. Like, in the end, obviously, as is the usual with cancel culture, everyone kind of moves on to the next victim, and everyone loves her again because they realize that the guy was the issue the whole time, and she gets her job back. But she kind of goes through this internal feeling of like, was that whole situation worth my trauma, and why did everyone just turn on me like that for something that I did nothing wrong? And yeah, I just kind of like how, without giving away what her life decisions end up being, I just liked the decisions that she ends up making at the end. And I thought the romance was very sweet. I never connected with it fully. It was more of like a rom-com vibe to me. Like, I just really liked the family vibes, the small town, the people, the Greek atmosphere, all of that. And the romance kind of took the back seat. But that's okay, because I just had a fun time. And I think that is all that I have to say about that one. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. And for a very short audiobook, it was very fun. And that was the last book that I read in the month. I did start another book on the flight home, but I didn't finish it until I got back, which was July. So I'll talk about that at the end of this month. But thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, then please give it a like and consider subscribing. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.